I'm looking for other reasons that the sauna, what else is it doing?
Yeah.
And what is there something else that I don't know about that I'm getting that can help me? I don't think I need any more to be reinforced on what it's doing.
Right.
But
yeah.
I just like to know, and the whys and the how comes.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing a lot of stuff. I like to start kind of with certain parts of our body and work to other parts. Obviously, we've covered on the mental health, but our cardiovascular system is just absolutely phenomenal for. So heart rate, it's vasodilating the blood vessels, increasing blood distribution throughout our body, and it's like going for a long run without impact on our body, like a long run can happen. Pain relief, I mean, the heat is phenomenal for pain relief. Also reducing inflammation and detoxing our body and skin health. That's one of the top reasons people buy it.
Awesome. Yep. Probably. It's all little things in this one. He's the blame.
Welcome to this episode of the Sweat Fanatic podcast. I'm your host, Erik, the Sweat Fanatic. This is where we talk about all things sweating. So infrared saunas, hot yoga, hot rock saunas, really anything and everything that makes us feel good and is really good for our health. So today I have a special guest on, and his name is Tim Decorah, and he's the host of the Survive and Thrive 8791 podcast, where he talks about mental health, and he'll explain a little bit more about his podcast and his specialty and expertise on that. So I definitely recommend you go check that podcast out. And he's also a proud owner of a Good Health Saunas that he bought a couple years back. And so thanks for coming on, Tim.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Most of you probably can't see this, but they got quite a setup here. I mean, compared to my 2-bit circus that I have, this is pretty nice.
Yeah, thank you. We just built it last year, about 6 months ago, and it's a lot easier for Alexis not having to put up a studio, bring it back down. It's all ready to go. So
yeah, so that's interesting that you set up and set up a studio. I call my studio the Buck and Honey's remote studio because at times it's in the lower level of our condo, and we've got a designated area there for the podcast.
Yep.
But there's some guests that I've had where I pack my stuff up in one of those little roller, from like if you're traveling, and would take it to different places and do podcasts there. So that's why I say remote studios, is that it's remote. But now I try to stay put.
Yeah, perfect. So why don't you give us a brief rundown, give our listeners a quick picture of who you are and what you do.
Okay. I like to start at the kind of in the beginning. So I grew up, born and raised in Wisconsin Dells, Wisconsin. Everybody knows that as the tourism capital of the Midwest. And went to high school there, graduated high school, took my talents to the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, the Harvard of the Midwest, and graduated from there with a physical education and health degree. Fortunately, got hired right away and taught in a small town called Hillsboro, just south of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Taught there for 3 years, and it was such a small town. There's no stoplights, 180 students in the high school, and it just felt a little bit too small for me. Plus, I was coaching basketball, so I wanted to move up the ladder and landed a job at Wahnak High School, just outside of our great capital city of Madison, Wisconsin, and started coaching there and teaching there and taught there for 29 years. And 29 out of the 32 years that I taught. Pretty much taught every grade level except for 5th and 6th grade. Ended my career teaching freshmen, and some people have asked, how could you work with freshmen? I've got a freshman and I can't even control him or her. Freshmen are great because they still have a little bit of some juice, and they're excited, they're respectful, and it was so cool to see these kids grow from 14 and 15-year-old kids, boys and girls, to 17 and 18-year-old young men and women, and just to see that maturity from freshman year to senior year is so cool. But I decided in 2024 to retire, and for teaching it would be considered early retirement at 55. Submitted my paperwork and retired in 2024. there was a coalition in my hometown, Wahnak Community Cares Coalition, and their job is to work with the village of Wahnak with the alcohol prevention, or actually substance prevention and awareness. And the two substances that they had been focusing on were alcohol and nicotine.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know that position existed until my ex-principal came in and said, "Hey, Coach, I think we've got a job for you." And he said it also pays and it has benefits. So I immediately perked up and I said, "Tell me more." And now I'm almost 2 years into that position, project coordinator for this coalition, where our primary job is to educate people about substances, prevention and awareness. And early prevention is key to hopefully a better life. And then certainly people that are in the community, we coordinate different events around prevention and certainly awareness and really education.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that for, almost 2 years.
Yeah. So when you say prevention, are you talking about preventing like an addiction type of thing, or more towards preventing or just keeping our mental health healthy?
I would say it revolves around a couple things. The first thing is the education and prevention, really making educated choices about what you're going to put into your body, in particular alcohol and nicotine. We also do focus on some of the other drugs that are out there, but mainly those two. There's some data out there that said, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first? Mental health issues and then substance issues, or substance issues and then the mental health. So there's two ways to look at that, which I think maybe we'll talk about a little bit. Was my situation was mental health issues, in particular anxiety, and then choosing alcohol as a coping strategy. But we try to give coping strategies so that when you do have anxious or anxiety or some depression, we try to give you some coping strategies so that you can use them before resorting to substances. So we work on a little bit of both, but it's really just trying to avoid substances and then the whys and the how comes, more so than just saying don't drink and don't smoke. We try to give the science behind it as to why and how come it's not good for you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm excited about this episode because the actual number one reason I use my sauna is for mental health. So I've gotten a lot of health benefits from infrared saunas. It's helped with my heart rate. It's lowered my resting heart rate from the high 80s down to the low 50s. Borderline hypertension to perfect blood pressure. Cleaned up my skin. I had really dirty, dry skin. And then also helped me lose some weight. But at the end of the day, I'm happy I get those, but that's not why I use the sauna. At the end of the day, I use the sauna for my mental health. That is the number one reason why I use my sauna. And it helps with my mood. It puts me in a better mood. I have better focus. I have less anxiety.
You don't have much weight to lose.
Well, I did at one point. I was 240 pounds at one point.
240.
And I dropped down to 180 with using the sauna and eating less sugar combined. And then now I'm up to about 205 because I've added a weight lift in the last couple of years. So I think and feel like a completely different person. So Tim, what were you dealing with that made you take mental health seriously?
It was 1999 or 2000, and I should remember this, but I don't, is I had my first panic attack. And I don't know if you know what those are like or if somebody explained them to you, but it's I've
had a lot of patients as a paramedic.
It's a pretty serious situation, and I want to maybe mention to the people listening now that if somebody that you know or that a loved one, it may not look serious to you, but it is serious to the person that is going through it. And my experience was I literally felt like I was going to have a heart attack, and I thought I was going to die. And at that time I was 29 or 30 years old, in shape, running around with 3 kids, and I thought I was going to die. And looked at that situation, and I didn't want to have another one of those ever again. So for about the next 20, 21 years, I lived life essentially on the edge of
Yeah.
trying to avoid panic attacks, but living with a lot of anxiety. And finally, in 2018 or 19, the place that I was working out in the town I lived in, I was getting strength training, I was getting cardio, and then they purchased a sauna. I don't remember what brand it was, but they had a sauna, a 3-person sauna. And my buddy who owned the gym said, "Hey, you want to give this a whirl and see how it fits in?" And I really didn't know much about the infrared saunas.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew of the old school ones where you picked up the water thing and dumped
Yep.
on the coals, and it got hotter than Hades. So I said, "Yeah, I'll go in and try it. Probably won't last very long." And he said, it gets up to about 140 or 150, and you'll be able to handle it. And I asked him, when should I use this? Should I use this at the beginning of my workout, middle, or end? And he said, why don't you just go and work out and then come back in and get in. And so I started going in at like 10, 12 minute increments, and just how much relaxation, even though it was warm in there, I felt so much more relaxed. And then certainly the sweat felt great.
Yeah.
I was sweating.
Mm-hmm.
I knew why, because it was warm. But
Yep.
then, or it was because it was hot. But then over the next 2-3 years, and then certainly with the purchase of my own sauna, I knew what was leaving my body just besides just sweat.
Yeah.
So we ended up leaving Wahnak, and we moved into Madison to get closer to our grandkids and our 3 kids. And I stopped working out at that facility and ventured around the Madison area on the east side looking for a place to work out. And I found a gym, but it didn't have a sauna.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed that component. I don't know if I was addicted to saunas, but I think I maybe was.
Well, you
And so-
feel better after using it. So when you stop using it, you don't feel that extra, energy, mood, stuff, focus that it can give you in your body.
Oh yeah, totally. So I started doing some research and looking around, and I spent about 8-9 months looking around and checking out prices until I stumbled upon Morgan at the state fairgrounds, Wisconsin State Fairgrounds, and they had a little booth and set up, and I met him, and we kept on talking, and then lo and behold, a family friend of ours had a 6-person Good Health sauna, and talked about knowing Morgan Oswald, and then we kept this relationship going, and finally I either broke down or he wore me down. But he wasn't pressuring. He was just always answering my questions and reassuring me that it would be a good choice. And lo and behold, now I've had a sauna for close to 2.5 years, and I love it.
Yeah, sometimes people need just a little edge push over the edge to get them going, and then they absolutely love it. They use it all the time. It's just they need a little bit of a push. But I'm glad back to the anxiety, the panic attack. I'm glad you brought up that it's a very real event for the person that's experienced it. As a paramedic, I know the patient's not going to die right there. The worst thing that could happen is that they pass out, but they can't. It's a feeling of you can't catch your breath. You're not getting oxygen. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to stop breathing, and it's a very real event for them. And the biggest thing that we do in the back of an ambulance is make them comfortable, try and get them to focus on their breathing and slow down. And usually over time you can help coach them into not having a panic attack anymore. But it's a very scary thing. Is that a moment when you started to get into saunas, or what was the moment you realized something physical like heat could affect your mental health?
I think just the education that Morgan was giving me, it was just a little bit here, a little bit there, and again, like I said, he was not pushy at all.
No, he's great
in terms of an urgency to sell me a sauna. He would answer my questions. I would go away for a month or two and then text him back, and this is during that whole research process. And I said, "Tell me more," and he was just giving me the scientific reasons behind the toxins leaving my body. And really the one thing I started focusing on was cutting down on sugar, cutting down on the bad carbohydrates, cutting down on fluoride, cutting down on I can't cut down on caffeine because I love coffee.
Yeah, me too.
But there were some things that I wanted to try to get out of my system, and a good way to do that was getting rid of some of those toxins in the body, and that really was kind of an aha moment when Morgan talked about some of the things that, it's just more than water. It's like 90% water and then about 10%, and you probably know this, but it's 10% of some other things that your body doesn't need or you don't want, and it just became something that I wanted to try to cleanse my body as much as I could. And a great way to do that, as well as listening to an audiobook or doing some meditation or some breathing, was sitting in a hot sauna. And, I was getting so much more than just the sweat. I was getting also the relaxation technique of meditating. Or now I pretty much spend most of my time listening to my podcast or listening to an audiobook.
Yep.
And I really look forward to it every day.
Yeah, I love audiobooks. I'm an audiobook fanatic. I've listened to hundreds of books. It's my favorite part of the day is when I'm in the sauna, drinking my coffee, listening to an audiobook. So did it this morning. And
Brothers from another mother here.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing this morning.
That's awesome. So we'll get into, how the sauna actually helps with, affects our brain, mental health, stuff like that. So was part of the reason that you ended up getting infrared sauna, were you thinking about your mental health at the time, or was it more getting toxins out like you just explained?
I think in addition to that, the other reason was just the meditation that really I was kind of landed upon that. So in the beginning when I was working out at my gym and then using the sauna there, I would just get in and get the sweat in and put my phone on the outside of the sauna, tape it on, and I was watching my Breaking Bad and getting the sweat in. And then I started getting educated on some of the other benefits than just the minimal. Getting the sweat in, getting the heart rate up, and then certainly those getting the toxins out, and really that calming sense that when I was done, it gets to be about, I go in there now for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
At about that 28 or 29 minute mark, I think I start to get bored a little bit. And I'm like, okay, we're almost done. And then when it's done, I feel good. I feel energized, and I feel like, okay, now I can move on to the next thing, which is usually getting a shower and starting my day. And if I don't have that sauna to go to, I miss a little something. It doesn't completely throw me off, but I think it starts my day in a positive manner, and then knowing that I'm getting rid of some things that shouldn't be in my body or helping cleanse myself, that's probably the thing that I look forward to the most.
Yeah. This morning I did a 45-minute session in my sauna, and it was the last 5 minutes where I didn't want to be in there anymore. It was hard for me to be in there. I'm like, it's hot, it's humid here today. I let it heat up a little bit longer than normal, taking care of my baby. And I get in there, and I've kind of learned over the years that the last 5 to 10 minutes where it's really hard to stay in there, when I push through it and I get done with my session, mentally I feel even better. Now obviously there's a point where you don't want to go past of like dehydration and overdoing it and stuff like that, but really there's that sweet spot of staying in there a little bit longer than you really can handle and getting out, and my focus is better afterwards. I feel more centered, all that type of stuff.
I suppose it might be similar to kind of going for a long run.
It's exactly what it is.
Doing some wind sprints. You got to that 10th wind sprint, and okay, coach would always tell you, all right, hey, let's get one more to break through, and then maybe two more would break you.
Yeah.
But just that one more, or that in your case, or in my case, when it's that 28-minute mark, I just want to get through to 30, and then feel just a little bit better. 32 minutes would be maybe too much for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of that breaking through and feeling like I accomplished something. I got to that 30-minute mark and I feel good. Let's start my day.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of initially got into looking at the sauna because, you felt better, but you're looking for detox, stuff like that. And then after you got it and were using it on a regular basis, you started to realize the meditation aspect, the mental health benefits, stuff like that.
Well, I do want to share something with you that also came into play, is that my last year of teaching, 2023, my wife went in for a normal scan, just a normal physical, and there was some feeling of not feeling very good, especially when she was using the restroom, the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And so she decided to call her doctor, and lo and behold, we need you to come in for a bladder scan. And she went in for the bladder scan, and it was Halloween 2023 and got that phone call. Actually didn't really get a phone call. Had the school secretary came down to my gym and knocked on the door, my PE class, and said, hey, Mr. Decorah, you need to call your wife. And I've had 2 other phone calls like that. Mm-hmm. And those 2 other phone calls didn't end good. So I'm thinking, okay, secretary came down to tell me this. I said, okay. So I called my wife quick, and she's sobbing on the other end. And I said, what's going on? And she started using some language that probably can't use here, mm-hmm. but how in the heck did this happen? I can't believe this. I said, what's going on? And she said, they found a spot on my bladder, and they think it's bladder cancer. So I said, okay, we've been down this path with your sister. First of all, let's calm down and let's relax and breathe. And again, this is where some of that meditation came in, and breathing and mm-hmm. coping strategies that I didn't have prior to 2023. And I said, I'll be home. I got to finish class, but I'll be home. And went home, and hearing the C word from your wife, your spouse, your best friend, your compadre, or whatever is hard. But we got through it. And that was about the time that we were seriously considering the sauna. Mm-hmm. And Morgan talked me through how that could help my wife and her after effects of going through immunotherapy mm-hmm. to try to get some of the toxins that were going in her body, to try to help get some of those out as well. So it went from not only just me and my situation of detoxifying, relaxation, meditating, to also now moving to my wife, who was experiencing the beginning parts of bladder cancer. And so he kind of shifted gears from me to her. Mm-hmm. And I think it was just his caring personality.
Oh yeah, that's Morgan.
Yeah, caring personality about, hey, I think this might be a really good time now. And I'm not just saying that, but I legitimately, I don't know your wife, but I care about that. So we fast forward, and I said, Laura, let's do it. And mm-hmm. and that's about the time that I purchased the sauna.
That's a phone call nobody wants to receive. That's the dreaded phone call that everybody worries about pretty much at all times, I would imagine. So I'm sorry you had to deal with that. How is she doing?
She's good. We're in year 3 now. She's got a procedure tomorrow. This immunotherapy thing is amazing. Mm-hmm. And the story behind her therapy, it's basically taking the tuberculosis virus, a very small amount, and injecting that back into the bladder. And she's got to stand up, walk around, move around. And I said, okay, that being the former Phy-Ed teacher, we can maybe do some log rolls or some somersaults and help coat the inside of that bladder. And then she's got to get rid of it in the normal way, go to the bathroom. And what that tuberculosis virus does, that small amount, attracts the white blood cells in the body, and they come down there and they do the work that mm-hmm. they're supposed to do to get rid of this. And after almost 3 years, and it'll be 3 years at the end of October, she has essentially been cancer-free, but now she's in the back end of the maintenance program for this. And she's not out of the woods either, because this particular type of cancer has the ability to come back.
Yeah.
Fortunately for her, it wasn't in the lining of the bladder. It was it wasn't in the muscle of the bladder. It was just in the lining, and this immunotherapy has done the job. But she'll probably have to go back for some follow-up checkups yearly until, I don't know if there's really a magic number. For some cancers there are, but this one I think is just going to be a lifetime of maintenance, and hopefully it doesn't come back.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that she's doing well. So I'm happy to hear that. So I had my best friend who's been on this podcast, Luke. His dad had cancer of the stomach lining, and he did immunotherapy and combined it with sauna use, and he's doing great. I mean, he did a lot of things. I mean, he was doing turkey tail mushroom, CBD. It was like, it's kind of one of those things where my buddy just researches it so much. He just threw the kitchen sink at it, which I think a lot of people do, because you're doing anything at that point to stay healthy, stay alive, all that type of stuff. Back to the sauna about with mental health and mood and stuff like that. So obviously we get endorphins released, like runner's high, but is that kind of, you think, the main reason why our mood will shift after using a sauna, or is there other things at play, do you think?
Well, just thinking about, you just mentioned endorphins, whether it's whether it's going for a run, playing some basketball, those are some of the things that I used to do cardio. Then I started sprinkling in weight training, strength training, because I was a high school football player, and I understood the reasons behind the strength training. But then going to school to be a physical education teacher and a health teacher, you start to understand the science behind why we do physical activity. Movement is medicine, and whether that's picking something up or moving your body releases those endorphins. It's basically the body's ibuprofen, and it has that medicinal property of making things feel better, and then probably gets into the brain and the in addition to the rest of the body, the brain, and all of a sudden now you feel physically stronger and you feel mentally stronger. And I'm going to guess that when I get in the sauna, my heart rate is going and it's moving the stuff around, and because of the heat, which you get also from working out, the heat that you're getting now is kicking those endorphins on, and that's why I feel like a world beater. I feel like I can I feel like I can run through a wall after I'm done with a 30-minute sauna session, and that's probably why I look forward to it. I use it specifically. I would say most of the week I use it 5 days a week. If I miss a day, very much like if I missed a workout on a Tuesday or Wednesday because of an early morning meeting, I will then jump in the sauna Saturday to make up for that workout. And that's why that's my approach to my sauna, is that I just don't want to miss a day. Yeah. And I think it's because of the way I feel when I get it set up and turn it on to when I'm done and I turn it off, that I just I feel a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. So then, as far as how it compares to other habits like exercise, meditation, stuff like that, do you feel like it's a little bit different how you feel after using it compared to after doing things like that, or is it pretty similar?
I would say it's very similar. I just think back to, I was playing pickup basketball in different men's leagues through about 33 or 34 years old. And then I started running, and then now I walk a little bit. I get the same sense of accomplishment if I do a 25-minute walk as I do when I get out of the sauna. I feel the same exact way, just a sense of I accomplished something. I did something that was good for my body, and I always feel better when I'm done.
So in your experience, that's what your mental state feels like before versus after a sauna session? I mean, same thing for me. When I use a sauna, I feel accomplished, I feel good, I feel relaxed, I feel focused. The mental clarity actually is probably the number one reason I use my sauna every single day, and I prefer it to use it in the morning, is I just have better focus, concentration, attention span throughout the day. It's the mental clarity. And that's why I've been using it every day. And the first thing in the morning for the last 10 years, for what it does for me, I'll use for the rest of my life. That's for sure. And it sounds like you're the same way.
Yeah, unless there's some other stone that I haven't turned over, or I'm a lifelong learner. I think you mentioned that you listened to over 100 books. I'm in the same boat. I've probably listened in the last 3 years to 150 to 160 books.
Yeah.
And prior to that, maybe 15 or 20 books where I read. And so I'm looking for other reasons that the sauna, what else is it doing?
Yeah.
And is there something else that I don't know about that I'm getting that that can help me? I don't think I need any more to be reinforced on what it's doing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I just like to know and the whys and the how comes.
Yeah, I mean, it's doing a lot of stuff. I like to start kind of with certain parts of our body and work to other parts. Obviously, we've covered in the mental health, but our cardiovascular system is just absolutely phenomenal for. So heart rate, it's vasodilating the blood vessels, increase in blood distribution throughout our body. And it's like going for a long run without impact on our body, like a long run can happen. Pain relief, I mean, the heat is phenomenal for pain relief. That's one of the top reasons people buy it. And also reducing inflammation and detoxing our body and skin health. So let's talk about how you use the sauna, like your practice and stuff like that. You said you're using it, like 5 times? You try to use it every day, but you're using it about 5 times a week on average. You said about 30 minutes is what you like to do?
Correct.
Okay. How long do you let it heat up for? What temperature do you like to jump into that?
So what I'll do is I'll get up in the morning, pour myself a cup of coffee, and then try to figure out what I'm doing for that particular morning. But I'll go down and turn on the sauna. And I like to get in when it's at about 135 to 140. And depends on how long I work out. Typically, I'll get on the bike that I have, and then I'll go from the bike, which is probably about 15 minutes, to I've got a rebounder. Some people would say that mini trampoline that I do. So I'll do that. For I have a 10-minute YouTube video that I'll watch, and then that 25 minutes, and then I'll go in, and the sauna's again anywhere between 135 to almost 148 degrees, and then that's when I'll jump in. And what I've done, or what I've experienced, was I've gotten in and jumped in right away, and it takes about probably 12 to 15 minutes to start breaking a sweat. But if I get on the bike and the trampoline, or I go from the bike to, also we have a rowing machine, if I spend 25 minutes doing those 2 activities, I'll get in the sauna and I'm warm, and my body will start sweating probably 2 to 3 minutes in. And just having that longer sweat again, and then start feeling, and when I start sweating, I start feeling, okay, this is starting to feel good now. And I feel relaxed, and I'm listening to an audiobook, or I might be doing some breathing and some meditating, and all of a sudden I can feel the trickle start coming down my forehead and my face, and I'm like, okay, that's my happy spot. And so I'll sit in there then through that 30 minutes, but then I start peaking up at the timer, and when it's like 24 minutes, I know that, okay, I got 6 more minutes, and I'm getting to near the end, and that's that point where it's that last sprint. I don't necessarily want to do it, but I stick it out, and I always feel better. There's been times where I've gotten out at the 24-minute mark, but it's very few and far between now. But if I make it to that 30-minute mark, that's getting through that last sprint or that last hill, and that sense of accomplishment of when I get out. And then also thinking about, okay, I sweated a few more toxins out, so I just feel accomplished. And then after I get done, turn the little red button on, and then try to clean it out a little bit, and then put it back on for 5 more minutes, and let it burn off any of the things that are in there, and then I'm done till the next morning.
Yeah, that reminds me of this morning, like when you're describing the feeling of once the sweat starts to flow, where you're like, yes, this is what I'm looking forward to. This morning, my wife went to hot yoga, and I was home with my newborn. And I put her in the chair right in front of the sauna and set her there.
She can't see you, but you can see her.
Correct. Yep. And I go in there, and it's very humid. I let it heat up a little bit longer than I normally do, and I'm starting to sweat like within 3-4 minutes in there. And she starts to get agitated, my baby, right in the chair. I'm like, oh no, don't do this to me. Hold on, you hang on, just let's get a 30 to 45 minute session, and at least let me get to 30 minutes. But then she kind of just chilled. She was awake the whole time, and she just kind of looked around. She looked like she was doing a little bit of exercising, but I was so thankful she gave me the opportunity to use the sauna this morning.
She knows what Dad wants.
Yep, exactly. That's my favorite part, is once the sweat just starts to get flowing. I like to do a lot of stretching in my sauna. So I got a corner unit like this. So I'll kind of sit in the middle and stretch out one way, stretch out the other way. I like to call it chair yoga and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But normally I start sweating beforehand, before I start doing my chair yoga. But in this instance, I knew I had to get going right away, because I didn't think she was going to let me stay in there that long. So I started right away. But so as far as using the sauna, leading up to using the sauna, how's your hydration? Do you hydrate before, during, after? Do you use electrolytes, or do you not use electrolytes?
So I typically get in. I don't drink. I drink some coffee in the morning, and I know that goes against water consumption a little bit.
Yeah, I've heard that my whole life too, but I'm kind of skeptical of that. I think it's water. I feel like it is doing some sort of hydration.
So to be quite honest with you, I'm not a big water guy. I know that I've been told after running activities or where you're somewhere where it's warm, especially coming from being a football coach and a football player, making sure that you're hydrated. I always tell people now, and this is my own experience, it's something that I believe in, is, dude, I'm 70% water already. So unless I'm feeling tight and locking up in my hamstrings or calves, which rarely happens, I'll have a little bit of water on the way to drive to work. But I'm not a big water guy. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure somebody's going to send a message into the podcast, that guy needs to drink more water. He's going to get a lot more benefits. He just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
I always feel pretty good. And I unfortunately probably get my water from some diet Dr. Pepper or diet Mountain Dew, or some juice at night. But I'm just not a big consumer of water during the day. And
do you eat a lot of fruit and vegetables at all? Because you get a lot of water from that too.
I also have, since last August, and what are we shooting on? Mid-April today.
Yeah, tax day.
Tax day. I've lost 30 pounds, and I have been doing some research in terms of the fasting.
Oh, yeah,
and typically, I don't eat breakfast. I will have a smoothie for lunch, or I'll have, like yesterday, a hamburger and fries with a buddy of mine. And then it's usually try to, as much as I can, make it 24 hours without eating, and then have a pretty well-balanced dinner of some protein and for sure vegetables. And then there's usually some juice in there, and then some sweets, maybe some ice cream or some Culver's custard. Yep. But I feel a lot better about my body because I'm not putting in a lot of extra things that I don't need. I mean, my body's got what it needs, especially if I don't eat it. It can go into the fat, fat reserves and whatnot. But I felt better without consuming so many calories. And then history lesson, you go back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, people just weren't eating that much.
Yeah.
And I've heard this, that the 3 meals a day came from the USDA trying to sell their food, and makes sense to the people that are producing the food because they get to sell more. But back in the late 1800s, people were maybe sometimes going a day or two without food because they had to go and get it.
Yeah.
Where I've started to believe in some of that a little bit, and I'm feeling a lot better without consuming so many calories during the day like I was. And then I'm also losing some weight, and I'm not dragging that around. But I think the sauna has certainly helped with some of that weight loss as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love fasting. I've been doing it for a long time, and there's a lot of mental health benefits that come with fasting, and it's really good for you. The only thing is you got to make sure, and this is what my wife harps on with me when I'm fasting, is it's hard to get in as much protein as you need when you're fasting. So as long as you're cognizant, you pay attention to the fact, the amount of protein intake, you'll be just fine. But speaking about water, I did hydrate a whole bunch after my sauna, so I got to run to the bathroom real quick.
Time out, Panthers.
All right, so let's get into a little bit about what you tell your clients as regards to sauna use and stuff like that. So do you recommend sauna use to the people that you coach, or is it something you kind of let them find out on their own?
Yeah, it's kind of something that they find out on their own. It's something that when people ask me, what do you do for a workout? What's part of your mental health and recovery? What do you do? And I go through the list of, I meditate, I self-talk, I do breathing exercises, I read, I exercise, and then I also do have a sauna that I use every morning. And they're like, oh, sauna.
Yeah.
And I have one at my gym, or my neighbor's got one, and I have not yet had anyone ever tell me, oh, I can't stand saunas. Mm-hmm. It's always 100% of the time, you got one in your basement or at your house? I say, yeah, I loved it so much from the one I used at my gym that I decided to get one. And then they start asking questions about where'd you get it?
Yeah.
What's the temperature it gets up to? And just always some questions. And over the last 3 years, going on, 2.5, 3 years, I've become a little more educated on the sauna and its uses and its benefits. I don't know that I've talked to anybody to buying one, mm-hmm. but the intrigue is always there. And I've also talked to some other people that have said, oh yeah, I've got a sauna as well. And then we kind of go back and forth of how we use it. And we're basically sharing ideas on how long we use it and why we use it, and just sharing coping strategies or techniques.
So getting into that, so you have a Good Health Saunas. You mm-hmm. bought what, you said 2023?
2023, yeah, I believe it was.
Okay. Do you remember which model you bought?
I bought the 3-person sauna.
Was it the Signature Series or the Hybrid?
Well, tell me what.
Does it look like this?
It does.
Okay, so you don't have overhang with lights. It's flush up top. You remember?
No, I got the little overhang.
You got the overhang?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got the Signature Series like me. You got the 3-person.
3-person. My wife and I can both fit in there, sitting next to each other, but somewhat comfortable.
Okay, awesome. So obviously, when you search saunas online, it can be a nightmare. You got 30 different companies pop up. 27 of them are being private labeled by some business guy that flips saunas, and there's a lot of like, okay, which one do I got? There's prices from $2,000 to $12,000. Like, where do you start? I guess when you were looking for a sauna, what were some of the important features or benefits you were looking for? And then what made you buy a Good Health Sauna? What stood out about it? What made you seal the deal and buy one?
Very much like you said, there was a ton of different people. You get the sauna into your algorithm on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and just a bunch of things start showing up and popping up, and prices and different items. I wanted one that was similar to the one that I had at the gym, which was just a glass door. It got up to about 150 degrees, and I started looking at, okay, how long is it going to take to get to 150 degrees? Because I don't have that time to wait for it. Mm-hmm. Well, when you're working out, that's the wait time. Yeah. So you just turn it on before you start working out, and then you work out, and then it's warm when you get into it. And I don't get into it cold. I make sure that I'm warm. So I was looking for something that had to be able to adjust it, to be able to play some Bluetooth music if I wanted to. I wanted something that maybe had the little red light therapy, and it was just very similar to the one that we had at the gym I was working out. Mm-hmm. So it checked off all the boxes. The one thing that I think Good Health Saunas stood out from the rest was, you're right here in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. I live on the east side of Madison. I got down here in just under an hour, so you're nearby. Morgan is up in Appleton. Appleton is essentially nearby Madison, so I can get there. And then the fact that when I made some calls to some different places across the country looking for a sauna, I had almost every single salesperson I talked to, talked great about their sauna and talked down about other people's saunas. And the one thing that Morgan didn't do was he never talked down about other people's saunas. Here's what I know about ours. Here's what ours does. Here are the benefits. And, this is what you're going to get. And then, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to have a couple of people deliver it to you, and they're going to set it up for you. And we're just a phone call away when it comes to something breaking down or something not working properly or questions. We're just a phone call away. And that sold me right there. Whether it was paying a little bit more money, the same price, or maybe something a little less or something a little more, the customer service is really what sold me. And at that particular point, the price and the cost, thinking about that completely went away. And I said, I want to go with this one because of all of those other things. And really, it was just a positive conversation that I said, tell me a little bit about yours. And he did. And I had that same question with about 4 or 5 other people across the country. And it was tell me about yours. And then it turned into a negative conversation when they were talking negatively about some of the other ones that I would bring up. Like I'm in this conversation. I want it to be positive, and it turned negative pretty quick.
Yeah.
And that never happened with Morgan and Good Health Saunas.
Well, that's awesome. Morgan's great. He's one of the best guys I know. I mean, he'll give you the shirt off his back. And he's been doing it a long time. He's been in the industry over 16 years, chiropractor. And he's a great father, great friend, great employee. And he knows all about all the saunas out there. I mean, he's used all the saunas out there. He knows what's good out there. He knows what's not so good out there. And he knows where we excel at and why people are going to benefit from using our sauna over some of the other ones out there.
Well, the one thing that he shared with me was the initial, here's what it does. Here are the whys and the how comes. But then he also shared some of his personal experiences with some family members and going through some similar things that I was going through. And then having the background of being a chiropractor, he had so much to bring, more so than somebody that wasn't giving quite as much information as he was. And then the life experiences he had, I went from talking to a sales rep to talking to somebody who genuinely cared about the equipment he's selling, and then the why, and then he had experience as to how it helped him out. I didn't quite get that with the other 4 or 5 people that I had. It was more of a sales pitch than anything. And then, like I said, it would always turn negative in the salesperson talking negatively about these other sauna companies, and I'm just not about that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that drives Good Health Sauna's success is we're sauna users. We're fanatics about it. So the company is driven by passion for sauna use, this passion for the benefits, passion for making people feel better, and having the best product with the best reputation, and making sure every single customer has a positive experience. That's what drives Good Health Saunas, and that's the key to the success of the company as a whole.
I don't know if that comes from our Wisconsin upbringing, that we're just good people trying to do good things for other good people in the state, and we just have that we have that built-in mindset in Wisconsin versus somebody from the East Coast or the South or the West Coast. It's that good Midwest, the Midwest kindness.
It's funny you say that, because people buy our saunas from across the entire country, and when they find out we're from Wisconsin, it's always a positive reaction. Oh, Wisconsin? I'll absolutely buy someone from
Wisconsin.
Yep, I will absolutely buy something from Wisconsin. So it sounds like you've had a really good positive experience with your sauna, with Good Health Saunas. That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. So let's wrap this up. So if you want, you could tell us about your podcast, tell us what it's about, what the listener is going to get out of it, and then show us where we can go to listen to your podcast and get involved with anything that you're doing.
So my day job is I'm project coordinator for the Wahnak Community Cares Coalition, and we mentioned this early, that substance prevention and awareness. And then I have a couple of side hustles that I've been doing now. The first one since 2022, I told my story for the first time about my alcohol use disorder and then my anxiety disorder. And once I started talking about those two particular things, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders, or I was able to take some weight out of my backpack and I could move around and I started sharing my story about that. And then all of a sudden word of mouth got around the Dane County, Madison area, and then northern Wisconsin and Iowa and Illinois about, okay, we need to bring this guy in and have him tell his story. And then I wasn't alone anymore, because all of a sudden I had people saying, hey, I suffered from the same thing. And for me, then the healing process started. And what used to be difficult and some of the things that happened when I was growing up didn't have as strong a hold on me as they used to. I could frankly talk about growing up in an alcoholic family. That used to be something that I was ashamed of and that I would try to hide and or run away from. Now I don't. And it's part of who I am. But talking about it started the healing process. And then somebody said, hey, are you writing a book on this? And so I'm in my third year of trying to finish my book and talking about some of the experiences I had, an author or trying to be an author. And then I started the podcast about a year and a half ago. I'm in season 2, where I bring people on, and it's called Survive and Thrive, 87-91. I graduated in 1987, and we won the Class B state championship for basketball, Wisconsin Dells High School. And the 91 comes from at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. We won the Division III national championship in basketball. Hence, that was the long story. I gave you the short version.
Yep.
And the 87-91 separates me from the other Survive and Thrives, because there's a bunch of other Survive and Thrives out there, and that separates me. But I bring people on to tell their stories. So I was sharing my story, and that's a good thing. But people might be sick of Coach Decorah's story. So I feature other people who come on and tell their story of surviving something, as simple as surviving a job loss, to as horrible as having your child commit suicide in your home while the rest of the family is there, and then everything in between. And I have them come in and tell that story of the survive part, and then what are you doing to thrive? And because I'm a former school teacher, I want the listeners to be able to take something away. So at the very end of the podcast, we go through the 5 suggestions for surviving and thriving, and bullet point them, talk about them, so that if a listener comes on, they can take something away. And then I always tell people, everybody should have a counselor or a therapist. I've heard that for the last 5 or 6 years. And, if you can't go to a therapist or a counselor, can you listen to a podcast? Mm-hmm. And listening to a podcast, at least the podcast I have, you hear a story that might resonate with you. You hear how they got through it, and then you're given some suggestions to implement into your own life or into your own program, and you take something away. But in the process, I've also heard people say, I listened to about 5 or 6 of your podcast episodes, and all 5 or 6 of those people talked about seeking professional help as a way to get through what they were going through. And you know what I did? I called my doctor, and he suggested a couple therapists, and now I'm seeking professional help as a suggestion from these people that came on the podcast. So it has had some success stories of people reaching out to their therapists or counselors, but regardless, they get to hear other people's stories that sound a lot like theirs, and people realize that now I'm not alone in this. In my journey, there's somebody that I can walk through. And I've had a number of people also connect with those same people that they listen to. And almost 100% of the podcast guests have said, if somebody wants to reach out, here's my number. They can reach out via the promos that I put out on Facebook, social media. And a couple of people have connected with those guests. And that's what it's all about, really helping people survive and thrive.
Awesome. Well, I encourage all the listeners to go in and check out Survive and Thrive 8791. It's a great podcast. I've got a couple episodes in, and I can't wait to listen to the next one.
And we can't wait to have you on.
Yeah, I'll be on soon, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll come up to the remote studios.
Or we could probably plug in my computer here and make it work.
Well, thanks for coming on, Tim. I really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your story, what you do, and your experience with a Good House Sauna and your sauna routine. So I really appreciate it.
Well, it was an honor to come down here, and you guys are exactly like the rep I worked with, Morgan. You kind of come down open arms, and everybody who's been so kind since I've gotten here, and it just, you got that kind of that feel, that family vibe here, and again, it's that Midwest kind.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. All right. So that's it for this episode of the Sweat Fanatic podcast. So until next time, get out there and sweat.